Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to part one in a three-part literacy series. Today's Lunch and Learn is building key literacy skills. Again, please feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself and let us know if you're here as an educator or a parent, a guardian, community member. My name is Stephanie Babbitts, and I am a coordinator on the New Jersey Statewide Family Engagement Center, also known as the Hub. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Hub now and a little bit about New Jersey Family Engagement Hub. So the New Jersey Family Engagement Hub recognizes that students thrive when families and communities are engaged in the school community, increasing the likelihood of student success. Our goals are to promote and engage in activities and policies that build collaborative partnerships among youth, family, school, and community in order to enhance child development and student achievement. We are committed to serve as a centralized information hub on family engagement to inform educators, practitioners, and families about the latest educational opportunities and barriers by providing technical assistance, resources, and support on effective family engagement policies, practices, and activities that lead to improvements in student development, academic achievement, and long-term success. We provide parents and caregivers with easy to understand, usable information to solve present-day problems, and provide youth with a voice to share their experiences and ideas to support their continued academic success, enhance parent and family, we provide parents and caregivers with easy to understand, usable information to solve present-day problems, provide youth with a voice to share their experiences and ideas to support their continued academic success, and enhance parent and family capacity to effectively work with schools and professionals to meet children's needs. So let's talk a little bit about SPAN. SPAN is the parent center for the state of New Jersey. We provide information, technical assistance, resources, and support for families. SPAN's mission is to empower families and inform and involve professionals and others interested in the healthy development and education of children to enable them to become fully participating and contributing members of our communities and society. For more information about SPAN, please visit www.spanadvocacy.org. We have about 45 programs that cover everything from education, health, mental health, human services, childcare, and child welfare. We extend to over 40 national, regional, and local programs funded by government agencies, foundations, and fee-for-service contracts. So our agenda for today. You will learn about, we're going to talk a little bit about the key literacy skills today. So learning about, which are known as the pillars of reading, will help you gain an understanding of how to support your child while reading at home and to help you build your confidence so you can effectively communicate with your child's teacher. So what do we mean when we talk about when we say the key literacy skills? According to the National Reading Panel, the 5 key concepts at the core of every effective reading instruction program are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. The symbols underneath the pillars represent the different concepts. Hearing for phonemic awareness, letter sound for phonics, reading along the page for fluency, words for vocabulary, and the idea light bulb for comprehension. So let's break this down a little bit further and gain an understanding of what each of these really means. So when we break this down, first we have phonemic awareness, and that's the ability to hear sounds in words. Phonics is the understanding that letters represent individual sounds. Fluency is the ability to read smoothly and accurately with expression. Vocabulary is knowing what the words mean and how to say and use them correctly. And comprehension is the ability to understand what you are reading. Today, we'll use examples from the book Cat in the Hat to look at each of these components. The Cat in the Hat, it's a classic, right? And it's a great book for kids because it's an entertaining and educational read with simple rhyming language, vivid illustrations, and a plot that encourages imagination. So that first skill, let's do a deep dive on phonemic awareness and talk a little bit more about what we mean. Phonemic awareness, yes, it's the ability to hear sounds and words. It's an auditory skill. It involves the task of pulling apart words into their individual phonemes, the smallest unit of sound when heard. Phonemic awareness helps children get ready for reading and writing by helping them understand that words are made of smaller sounds. It also helps them sound out words as they read and write. One of the key differences between readers who struggle and those who don't is strong phonemic awareness. That's why phonemic awareness is a strong predictor of early reading success. If a child can complete phonemic awareness tasks, they're more likely to be a good reader. So let's see this. Let's use a passage from Cat in the Hat. So listen to this passage. I'm going to read this. The sun did not shine. It was too wet to play. So we sat in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. There are two words in what I just read that rhyme. Did you hear what they are? So listen again. The sun did not shine. It was too wet to play. So we sat in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. So do shine and house rhyme? No. And this is an activity you can do with children, right? But what about play and day? Do they rhyme? They sure do. So play rhymes with day. Now let's look at phonics and talk a little bit about phonics. Phonics is reading instruction that helps children understand how letters and groups of letters link to sounds, forming letter-sound relationships and spelling patterns. Phonics unlocks the written language for children by helping them to decode words, so understanding how letters and sounds work together for reading, and to encode words, so knowing which letters to use when they're writing. Let's see this in action. This one's going to get a little interactive now. So let's take a look at a few words from this passage that we can use to practice phonics. So we're going to use the words wet, play, and cold. So looking at the word wet, wet starts with the letter W, and the W makes the W sound. E makes the eh sound, and T makes the T sound. So let's tap this out on our fingers. Right? So together, when we blend the sounds together, we get wet. Now let's look at the words play and cold. Here we see 4 letters, but notice that there are not 4 sounds in play because the letters A and Y make one sound. So when you're sounding them out, don't separate the A and the Y. So again, lay. 3 sounds, 3 taps. All fingers together and moving to blend those letters, right? Looking at cold, it's with 4 letters, each with its own sound. The C says k, and in this word, O says it's O, L, the L, and D for D. So again, we're going to tap on our fingers. K, k, O, D. So 4 sounds, 4 taps. As you sit with your child, you can practice this together as it comes up when needed. You wouldn't want to do every word, 1 or 2 to practice. And you'll want to start with words like wet, when there's a consonant, vowel, consonant. So you'll see what we call like a CVC, consonant, vowel, consonant pattern, which makes it very clear that each letter represents a sound. If there are 2 letters that make one sound, like in the word play, you can point this out to your child as well. Breaking down words like this is what we call decoding, and this is how phonics works. So let's now talk about fluency. To understand what they read, children need to read smoothly and easily. Good readers don't have to think hard about sounding out words or knowing what they mean. They do it automatically. This lets them focus on understanding the story or information. Skills like sounding out words, knowing word meanings, and hearing sounds in words must be strong and automatic. Fluency isn't the final goal. It helps readers understand better by freeing up the brain power for the meaning. So let's see this in action now, going back to Cat in the Hat. Click it on, and we're going to see it right there. There we go. So again, it's the ability to read smoothly and accurately with expression. So let's take a look at this passage, and I'm going to read it. And we looked, then we saw him step in on the mat. We looked, and we saw him, the cat in the hat. And he said to us, "Why do you sit there like that? I know it is wet, and the sun is not sunny, but we can have lots of good fun that is funny." You can hear my expression when I read these words, right? A great way to practice fluency with your child is to take turns reading passages. You go first, so you're modeling reading smoothly and with expression, just like I modeled for you. When it's your child's turn, depending on their level, it may be that they read one short passage and read it a couple of times until they're comfortable with saying it. Your work on fluency can happen in shorter sessions, so your child can build up to longer passages. Go back to passages that they can do well first, so they can feel confident with their abilities, and then dive into something a little more challenging. Another fun way to practice fluency is to use character voices or even doubt a scene. This builds in the expression and can also help them understand the meaning of what's going on. Next is vocabulary. Vocabulary refers to words we must know in order to comprehend and communicate effectively. Vocabulary can be described as either oral vocabulary or reading vocabulary. Oral vocabulary refers to words that we use in speaking or recognize when listening. Reading vocabulary refers to words we recognize or use in print. Vocabulary is very important for learning to read and understanding what we read. To understand a text, children need to know what most words mean. Students can build their vocabulary by talking with others, listening to stories, and reading. Still, some words must be taught directly. Teaching specific words helps children learn important and difficult vocabulary and supports those who need extra help. So let's see this in action. Again, something that you can do with Cat in the Hat with your child. So before we read this passage, I'm going to ask for a little bit of help. If you want to, you can participate. If not, it's okay. But when I say the word shake, what comes to mind? And if someone from my team wants to read, if anything comes up in the chat box on this, when you hear the word shake, you're shy, it's okay. I don't shake, it's lunchtime right now, so I'm thinking of like a milkshake personally.
And Stephanie, Beth, put milkshake with exclamation.
There you go. See, we must both be wanting milkshakes right now because it's
Yeah.
lunchtime, right? So yes. So shake can mean milkshake. It can also mean to tremble, right? So let's read this passage and talk about the meaning of shake in the context of this story. I will pick up the hook. You will see something new. Two things, and I call them thing one and thing two. These things will not bite you. They want to have fun. Then out of the box came thing two and thing one. And they ran fast to us. They said, "How do you? Would you like to shake hands with thing one and thing two?" So again, what does shake mean here? It's placed next to hands, so it means to grasp another's hand and move it up and down as a way to greet someone. You shake another person's hand. We can tell this is what it means because of the context of the story, right? Two new things were introduced. And plus, we probably are already familiar with what shake hands means. This is an example of how important it is to recognize that as we read, a word's meaning may become evident based on how it's used. If it's not evident, Then take the time to talk about what the word means and give examples of similar words so your child will have some associations with the new word. Learning what words mean is a lifelong endeavor for a reader, so never shy away from the words that you think might be too hard for your child to understand. Give them the chance to learn all different words. And finally, comprehension. Learning to read consists of developing skills in two critical areas. One, reading each word in text accurately and fluently. And two, comprehending the meaning of texts being read. This is known as the simple view of reading. And if you Google simple view of reading, you'll get a lot of good information on that. Reading involves a complex integration of skills. Proficient readers seem to make the process look effortless. But reading instruction for all students requires that systematic instruction in both word reading and comprehension. So simply put, comprehension is the ability to understand what you're reading. So let's go back to Cat in the Hat. One of the ways to practice this with your child is to have them make predictions and imagine what characters are feeling. Because again, when we think about comprehension, the goal is reading, right? So we want to understand what is happening. So for instance, take the passage on this page. Then Sally and I saw them run down the hall. We saw those two things bump their kites on the wall. Bump, thump, thump, bump. Down the wall, in the hall. Look at the picture. They're running down the hall. What are they doing with those kites, and where do you think they're going with them? How do you think Sally and her brother watching are feeling, and what do you think they're going to do? So what we're doing here, and this is, again, this is the way you'll engage your child and do this in the activity, is we're making predictions. Really, that's what we're trying to do here. And that's part of that comprehension. So when we're making a prediction in a story, we're using our brains in a way that is taking what we know or comprehend about the story and thinking about what makes sense to happen next. In this case, however, and in a Dr. Seuss book, there may be no sense to what happens, but we can still make a prediction based on what we already know, such as these things are unpredictable, like flying kites inside a house. Having conversations with your child about what is happening and how the characters are feeling and what is going to happen next are all good ways to build their comprehension and turn the light bulbs on for them when it comes to stories. So again, going back to these 5 pillars of early literacy, let's review again and think about and how to use this in an activity with your child. When we go think back to the first one, phonemic awareness. Ask your child what other words rhyme. So that's a way you can engage with them on their phonemic awareness. Ask them what other words rhyme with play and day. You can even do that when you're out with them, out and about, looking for rhyming words. For phonics, with your child, tap out on your fingers each letter sound. Play, wet, cold. And we talked before about the consonant vowel consonant. So those CVC words are real easy for doing that. And then blend those sounds together to say the word. For fluency, sitting next to your child, read one page and have your child read and reread the next page until they say things smoothly and with expression. Vocabulary. Before reading the passage, ask what your child thinks of when they hear the word shake. Then read the passage and see what the meaning is in the context of the sentence. And for comprehension, read the passage and then ask your child what they think will happen next in the story. And then ask them why they think it's going to happen. That's really building their reading comprehension skills. So if you're looking for some additional books to practice this with, here are some recommendations. And I'd love to hear from you. If anyone has any books that you've read or maybe you were read to as a child. It's funny, when we were doing this, I was thinking about, I remember my mother reading the what was it, the three little pigs? That was like the book when I was little, that, or Goldilocks and the Three Bears, like those books. So that was in my time. That's what I remember from when I was little. But books now I've read with my children, and I'd love to hear from you. Chicka Chicka Boom Boom is a great book. We're Going on a Bear Hunt, Lola at the Library, and Pete the Cat. I love my white shoes. I have to say, Pete the Cat is in my house a big hit. So my kids, especially my son, he still loves Pete the Cat. He still loves to read that book, and he's almost 15, so he still loves Pete the Cat. Oh, Green Eggs and Ham, absolutely. Sam, I am, right? So there's so many great books out there, and there's many online, simple books that you can get for free. You can go to your library. Library is always a great place too to take advantage and have these opportunities with your child. So it's just about practice, 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 right? So next slide. I wanted to kind of talk now a little bit about, as we start to wrap up on this session today, communicating with confidence. So, if you are a parent here today, or a guardian, a caregiver for a child, helping them to read, and you're learning now some phrases that might be new to you, and thinking about how to communicate this with your child's teacher, because maybe you want to get some more information. And I want to talk briefly now about communicating with your child's teacher, and provide you with some sample questions that you can ask your child's teacher, maybe to help better support you, to help you support your child at home. We're going to dive deeper into this. We're doing a whole lunch and learn on this in December, on communicating with your child's teacher. But I wanted to give you kind of like a little sample now that you could take away from this today. So again, we're going to dive deeper into communicating with your child's teacher at our December lunch and learn session. So the first one, for phonemic awareness, this is a good question you can ask your child's teacher. What materials do you use to teach phonemic awareness, right? So phonemic awareness, we talked about the rhyming words. So ask your child's teacher, what materials do you use to teach phonemic awareness? That can help you. Maybe you could try at home some of those materials. For phonics, how are you monitoring to ensure my child masters the phonics that you've taught? So again, thinking about that phonics skill, and thinking about how are they progress monitoring to make sure your child does master the phonics that is being taught. Sorry. Next up, for fluency, is my child's oral reading fluency above, at, or below grade level expectations? Remember, fluency is about how they're reading, with smoothly and with expression. If my child is struggling, are they struggling with reading words accurately, reading at an appropriate rate, or reading with expression? So these are kinds of questions you can ask around fluency. Vocabulary. A great question to ask is, where can I find a list of vocabulary words that are being taught this year, or that will be taught this year, So I think that's a really great one to find out, because you can start practicing. You can practice them at home. I love flashcards I do with my kids with vocabulary, when they would have quizzes and stuff, flashcards, put the vocabulary on the front, on the back, write the definition. We kind of put them on a table, and do that with my child. And that would go over really well to help them with building their vocabulary. And then lastly is for comprehension. How are you monitoring to ensure my child is building comprehension? Can I see my child's data, my progress monitoring data, so I know what they're doing well and what they need to work on? So comprehension is so all encompassing. It also comes into play with math. I think of my own child, my daughter. Reading comprehension is always her biggest struggle. And so at times with math, when it comes to word problems, she sometimes shuts down, because again, there's a lot of comprehension that goes into those word problems. So this is a great conversation to have with your child's teacher, or a great question to ask, is monitoring to ensure my child is building comprehension, and to look at the data. So they're always taking data, whether it's tests, quizzes, work samples, even just during parent-teacher conferences. These are kinds of questions you can ask as well. So as I said, we're going to talk more about this in December at our December lunch and learn. So So as we start to wind down now, and again, being mindful of the lunchtime, we do have a quick survey. If you have, I don't know if we'll be taking a couple of questions, but I'll be more than happy to if you want to, or if there was anything in the chat box, I'd love to hear from you. If you scan this QR code and the link is also dropped into the chat box just for a quick survey. Would love to hear from you. The surveys and the feedback help shape the work that we do. So if there's something you'd like to learn more about, please feel free to let us know. We'd love to hear from you. I'll give you a moment to scan before I talk about our next Lunch and Learn session that we're holding next month. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, and then we'll come back to this if you need the QR code again, but I just wanted to talk about the next Lunch and Learn that we're doing, and I hope you join us. This is going to be a good one. If there's anything I love to talk about, it's legislation and policy. So on Tuesday, November 25th at noon, we are going to do, so today I called it the 3Ps. So today was about practice, how to practice these skills at home. Next month is going to be a focus on policy. And then that one in December with talking to your child's teacher, that's going to be partnership. That's the third P, got partnership there. Next month, we're going to be talking about policy. We're doing a deep dive on talking about the legislation. There's been a lot going on around early literacy and addressing what's been kind of being called the literacy crisis, right? So join us as we examine the state of early literacy in New Jersey and how legislation has been passed to address literacy achievement in schools. We're going to talk about how students can receive the support they need to read and learn about initiatives that support early literacy and identify best practices to support your knowledge on this very important topic. So again, we're going to come up. I'm actually going to have a co-presenter with me for that, who is very knowledgeable in policy as well. So I'm really excited for that Lunch and Learn. I hope you come back in November for that one. And then just that should go to the next slide. And you can, again, connect with us. So my contact information is on the slide. So feel free to reach out to me. But we will have a resource folder available I did put a few resources in there. Check back because we probably will add a couple more resources to it. Connect with us on our website. And I think if we go to the next slide. Again, the QR code for our survey. So were there any questions or feedback? I don't know if Jeanette or anyone from the team can see anything in the chat box.
I don't see anything in the chat box other than the links to the survey. So we encourage folks to please take an opportunity to fill out the survey. But if there are any questions, now might be the time to do so.